Hello, everybody. Great to be back with you. All right, we are now starting Module 14, which means we just finished 13, which means you need to have a quiz on that. All right, so I'm just now learning how to attach those into the Google Classroom. So I will attempt to do that by later today, and then you can get that from there. You'll have to agree to join the classroom, and then you'll go to classwork and find it there. If I can't get it put on there, then I will just email it to you, all right, in a group emailing. And you can type right on it, I think, possibly, or print it out, take a picture of it, send it to me. I realize that's a lot of steps, and I apologize trying to work on that. All right, so we are now going to start 14. We're going to do 14A today and then a little part of 14B. And that is because next week when you're doing 14B, you're going to spend a lot of your time actually going online on your own and watching a movie. So we're going to try that. So we are now going to be looking at the deep ocean. So beneath the photic zone, we're going to get to where it's dark and creepy. All right. And here we go. So the deeps are divided into two zones. These are the mesopelagic and then the deeps, which will be further divided, which we'll get to in a little bit here. So at the beginning here, we're just going to talk about the mesopelagic region. What is it? Well, there's a small amount of sunlight that actually reaches this, some of that blue light, right? Not enough for photosynthesis, but enough for a little bit of vision. No primary production, obviously, no photosynthesis. Most food actually comes down from the epipelagic. It's debris that's sinking down into the depths. Very little life here, but interesting life at that. It's at about 200 meters down to about 1,000 meters. So I think you might want to write that part down. How deep is it? Down to 1,000 meters. 200 meters is where the epipelagic ends, and then we get to the mesopelagic. All right, we meet up here now the thermocline. So what is the thermocline? You see over here on the right, the water. So up here is the epipelagic. It's going to be the photic zone. It's going to be warmer, right? And then we're going to have the temperature dropping. This shows you temperature higher this way. So the temperature is dropping. As we get down, obviously, there's no light to warm it up. And then we get to the deeps, and it almost levels out at a certain, a very cold temperature down there. So it's a specific depth in the ocean where the water temperature drastically drops. The water's cold. No solar energy there. No phytoplankton there. So they have the creatures that do live there are strange ones. So we're looking kind of at the food webs here. There are plenty of zooplankton. We'll get to that in a minute. Zooplankton, remember, they're going through that vertical migration. So the feeding strategies of the creatures that live down in the depths, they're going to sit and wait, and what they'll do is they'll wait for some of those creatures to come back down and vertically migrate back down, or they will vertically migrate, okay? So they can actually go up at nighttime into the epipelagic and feed up there. We're going to be looking at some of these crazy creatures and their adaptations they have to make their feeding strategies more successful down there in the depths. So what is their design? We'll get back to ostracods and the photophores in just a minute. So we're going to be looking, drop down a little bit to where it says mesopelagic organism design, and I guess we'll get back to the feeding strategies. They have very sensitive lateral lines. Remember the lateral line on the side of the fish? We saw that in our shark. That allows them to sense electrical charges nearby and make quick movements and things like that. So these are very, very sensitive. They can recognize movement, small movement from a distance, quite a ways away. They tend to have transparent body design, so that they are hidden somewhat from beneath, right? So if they're looking up from beneath, they kind of are hidden in and lost in there. In the lower depths, they are black, red, or silver in color. That is actually counter shading for that area down there. The black and red, of course, because that's the only light that's going to reach down there, right? They tend to have thin bodies. We're going to see at the end here, though, some gigantic ones. And then there's bioluminescence. So if you want to write this down in your blank of bioluminescence, I have a whole slide coming on about it, but you can write this down. The production of visible light by living organisms. There's some debate as to how that is done. You know, we know like fireflies are able to produce a chemical reaction within their bodies. Some people believe that the bioluminescence happening in creatures in the deeps is actually being produced by bacteria that are living in there. And so I'm not sure that we have figured it out completely. Perhaps there's bacteria in some of them and then chemical reaction in others. But they do produce light on their own. And then their counter illumination they'll produce with photophores. That's your blank here in the middle of the page. You can wait on that one because I have a better explanation of that here in just a minute. Okay, so our zooplankton who are up here are obviously part of our food webs, right? So part of the eating strategies right here. They are plentiful in the mesopelagic because of vertical migration. Many are crustacea. We'll be looking at those in particular in a minute. These photophores, here we go. The photophores are organs that produce light. They produce a dim, cool light. It doesn't heat up. It's dim, but in a dark place, very visible. This is a strategy to create camouflage, like counter shading. Light is on the ventral side. So we're looking at a picture here of a lanternfish, and you can see all those little cells on the belly side, on the ventral side of the creature, which would produce light and cause a counter shading from below. So if a creature's below looking up, it will get lost in the glimmer of the upper part of the mesopelagic. So you can fill that in for photophores right there, organs that produce light. This is a close-up of that organ. So here's a strange creature there, some sort of fish with some photophores there. And so this is one theory here, is there's this tissue right here that is glowing. Now, how is it glowing? In a firefly, we'd be mixing chemicals together similar to a light stick that we break open, right? And then we have the color filter, and look at this cool thing. There's a lens. The lens will actually magnify the light and sort of send it out, sort of like if you look at a flashlight, there's a lens on there that magnifies the light out. So somehow that stuff is glowing and it's sending it out like that. So here's a picture of a creature that's got those photophores all lit up. So definitely visible, right? That would also, we're going to see in some cases how the photophores actually are attractive. They're attracting prey to a predator. So more on our organism design right here. So include this on another thing on your organism design. They have large eyes. The ones that have eyes, when we get to the really, really deep stuff, when we talk about that, there'll be creatures down there that don't even have eyes. They don't need them. But these creatures in the mesopelagic will have eyes with big magnifying lenses on them. So like this tubular eye right here, it's got a tube shape and a lens on it, which will pull in every bit of light that's nearby that they can pull in and bring into their eye. That picture's not the best picture. I have a better picture coming up of a tubular eye. But this creature is called the barrel eye fish. The ostracods, back up a little bit here, are little creatures. This is actually our lab today. And this is, furthermore, I think I mentioned to you, the one I want to save for you. All right, so I'm saving this. I'll explain to you how it goes, and then I'll keep these little critters. I actually have some ostracods. They're not alive. They're desiccated, dried out, and it's pretty cool. I'll explain it to you at lab time. Right over here to the right, what we're looking at is a fossil of an ostracod. It turns out they're little crustacea, little shrimp that live inside a shell. I'll show you a better picture in a minute. But those shells are easily preserved as fossils. So you can see on the right we have a little fossil of an ostracod. They've been around for a long time apparently. They are part of the creatures that vertically migrate to feed in the upper levels at nighttime, and then they come back down, and they have an ability to have bioluminescence. And we'll see that that's what our lab is. Here's what they look like when they're alive. You can see the little critter inside that. So the outside part here is actually a little shell. So picture like a little clam shell, tiny clam shell about the size, smaller than your fingernail. And then the creature on the inside. Here you can see he's swimming around. He's got his little legs out there. There's his little eye spot. And here we'll see another one. See, now you can see that shell pretty well right there. And so when we look at them, we have the little shells, and we're going to end up actually crushing them. Here's what their anatomy looks like. All right, so their little eye spot, we saw that on there. Their antennules, their little legs out here. So just like a little shrimp in there. Notice this one has eggs piling up inside the shell there. Let me see. Does this show where our photophores are? Not really, does it? Okay. But they do go through bioluminescence. So right over here is a group of them, and you can see them glowing right there. And here's one all by itself, still alive and glowing. All right. This, I think, is a picture of like a swarm of them when you can see like a glowing a cloud of them in the ocean. And then on the shore. So coming ashore right here, they're glowing as they hit the shore. So what about survival? How are these creatures surviving here in the mesopelagic? They will usually sit and wait. That's how they're going to catch prey. They will wait. They want to use very little energy. It's very cold, right? They're neutrally buoyant. They neither float nor sink. Interesting, huh? And they often have long teeth, hinged jaws, and very large mouths that will allow them to swallow big prey. They migrate oftentimes to the epipelagic at night to feed, so they go through vertical migration. Sometimes feed then at night, and then they'll in the day just come hide again. So this whole idea of hiding and sitting and waiting, that kind of thing. This one's called the bristlemouth fish. You can see how it got its name. Its mouth has got those teeth in there. Notice how big the mouth is. If it opens its mouth, the mouth is actually larger than the rest of its body. Remember we talked about the narrow body, the flattened body. We can see this here. So they can end up actually swallowing something quite large, and it'll keep them fed for a long period of time. It'll sustain them for a long time. Here's a close-up of the mouth. You can see those little bristle teeth right there. So when they catch prey, it'll be hard for the prey to get away. Not bristles, not just on the teeth areas here, but also inside the mouth. There are bristles there as well. This is called the viperfish. You've probably heard of this one. Once again, check out that massive mouth. The jaw opens almost completely there, and then they can swallow something very large. I'm not sure. This is a shrimp of some sort that is spitting out a bioluminescent, cloud to protect it. I think that's been added in right there. I just wanted to look at this guy's mouth. What I find interesting, also check this out. I'm going to bring it a little closer here. Take a look at that. Look, that's his gills. Pretty cool, huh? Nice and red, right? Because that's where the gas exchange is taking place. And once again, check out that mouth. Very large. It can gobble up something quite large. Also notice on its belly, right here, the photophores right there. So some bioluminescence going on, giving it that counter shading. Okay. This is a artist rendition of this right here of a viperfish. Notice this one has a lure right here, a bioluminescent lure. That obviously is to lure prey to come to that big mouth. Also the photophores all down here, right, giving it its counter shading. We'll look at another critter, the anglerfish, with that lure right there in a minute. This is, one of those cards, monsters from the deep kind of a thing. It gives you sort of the things that make this a very, very scary creature. So it gives you some information over here, length and this kind of thing. And then over here we have some interesting details about it right here. They lurk in the darkest depths of the sea, fierce predators, this kind of thing. Their jaws are wider than their body. They can open at a 90-degree angle, and then of course their fearsome fangs right there. Look at this guy's tubular eye. That is beautiful. So this is a much better picture of what the tubular eye is looking like. This looks like a creature that's got giant glasses on or something. Remember, those are our lenses are there to pull in any bit of light they can. This is called the threadtail fish, and they have a body design for this area. This tubular eye of the threadtail fish allows for capturing even the minute amount of light, magnifying it in long distance vision. And they're dark colored, have very sensitive lateral lines. We already knew all that. Yeah, but great picture. Which remind me, it's difficult to find these creatures. They're very deep, so it's not often that we find them, and we certainly have trouble finding them alive. So the ones we usually study are ones that have died and somehow made it to the surface without getting eaten up. All right, so here's another definition of our bioluminescence: the product of visible light, the production of visible light by a living organism. And here's counterillumination. Creatures can brighten and dim that light as needed for counterillumination. Remember, so that's going to be like our counter shading right there. So you might want to put that on your blank down there for counterillumination. It's a chemical reaction in some cases, but like I said, there's a little debate. In some cases, it might be bacteria who are doing this chemical reaction, something like that. But if it's a chemical reaction similar to what happens in the lightning bugs, we have something called luciferase and the enzyme called luciferin, a protein. They react together in the presence of oxygen to make oxyluciferin, making energy, which is manifested in light with very little heat. It's a cool light. Luciferase acts as a catalyst in this reaction. 90% of the mesopelagic organisms produce some sort of bioluminescence. That's pretty amazing. All right, so there's no light down there, so they're making their own. Here is some sort of critter. I guess that's kind of a squid or something, huh? With this little photophores all lit up right there. And we're going to watch a little video. I think it's just going to show us different ones. Enjoy. Okay, you get the idea there. Okay, so I think, let's see. Let me check something. Yeah, I think I want you to go ahead and turn page now over to 14B. All right, and this next slide I put in the wrong place, so I'm going to go back to it. So we're going to cover some of next week's lecture now, because next week you're going to spend your time, like I said, on a movie. So back up here. All right, so these are the zones. At the top of page 94, you're going to see the deep ocean zones. There's 3 boxes there. So these are the words you're putting in the 3 boxes. The first one's going to say bathypelagic. All right, the bathypelagic zone. And the depth is going to be 1,000 to 4,000 meters. All right, the bathypelagic. Your second box is going to say abyssopelagic, from 4,000 down to 6,000. That's your depth blank you're filling in there. And then your last box is going to say the hadopelagic zone, 6,000 down to the deepest ocean trenches, which can be even down to 11,000 meters. So go ahead and write those in your 3 boxes. Remember, you can pause this so you can write those weird spellings right there, and you can get them all on there, however much of that you want to put on there. Okay, so these are our zones. Wrong slide. Oh, here we go. The deep sea is located below the mesopelagic down to the ocean floor. That's all called the deeps, but they're divided into those 3 regions. No sunlight at all can get to this area. It's very, very cold, but salinity and other chemical concentrations tend to be stable down here. High pressure, that makes sense. And creatures down here are designed for the pressure and can tolerate a drastic change in pressure. Oh, I'm sorry, cannot tolerate it. And when they come up, for instance, if they come up from the depths, then they are in big trouble. That they tend to explode. There are 3 zones based on pressure, and I guess I just gave you those 3 zones. Sorry about that. And here we go. So our bathypelagic and abyssopelagic and hadopelagic right there. And you can see some of our creatures. We're going to talk about this critter in a minute. Some creatures living in there. And above that you see the epipelagic and mesopelagic. We know all about those now. So deep sea life. These creatures, so what factors could impact the deep ocean zones. We talked about it in the previous deal. So pressure, cold, that kind of thing. The life down there, let's see. Creatures tend to be gray, black, or red. They often have small eyes or even no eyes. So there's no really light to catch here. So they're going to not have to worry about that. Bioluminescence is common for them to be able to see things, for catching prey or finding a mate. Most are small, and there's very few of them. All right, so it's few and far between. They move very slowly. They have watery muscles, weak skeletons, no swim bladders, and these are some crazy creatures down here. Finding a mate. There are two strategies they have. One of it is that they are hermaphroditic. They have both male and female organs, and so they're able to not have to get a mate at all. And the other really bizarre one is called male parasitism, which we'll get into in detail in just a minute. Look at this creature, the blobfish. I think at first we thought this was not real, that it was some sort of fake photograph that came up. Notice it's going to have the squishy kind of skeleton, right? And it can, this pressure. It may be deformed somewhat from having come up from the deeps, that it may have bloated out a little bit, and that's why it looks that strange. The blobfish. The gulper eel. We have a massive mouth right here with the teeth on there. I think I have. Yeah, this is a picture of one. Once again, these guys are not very easy to study, because they're hard to find. All right, so they're not, we tend to find them like this. I believe this is a dead one. And so we have to study them when they're dead and not when they're alive. That's difficult to find them then. That looks like a photo, I guess, huh? That's pretty creepy stuff. The gulper eel. The anglerfish is probably one of the most famous. I think it's in Finding Nemo. I think I have a Finding Nemo picture coming up right here. This, I don't know if that's real or artist rendition of one right there, but look at the big mouth, large teeth. It has some eyes that aren't massive, but they're certainly eyes. Then, of course, the famous lure here that bioluminesces to find its way, right? Here, this is definitely an artist rendition. This other little crazy fish, an anglerfish, is running away from a bigger anglerfish. I will tell you, there are lots of different types of anglerfish. Some of them are, they vary in their, they're generally the same with the largemouth and the lure, but they have other variables, whether it's size, color, that kind of thing. And this is, I believe, is the one from Finding Nemo. Notice this guy seems to have some of those tubular eyes right there. Pretty creepy. I don't remember what was happening in this part of Finding Nemo. All right, we're going to watch a little video on actually somebody was able to see one of these guys alive. Let's see.
This is a deep-sea anglerfish mating pair. These animals have rarely been observed in their natural habitat, hundreds to thousands of meters below the ocean's surface. You're watching one of the few known videos, and this one shows a sexually parasitic pair for the first time. That means during mating, the tiny male is permanently attached to the female. He gets nutrients and she gets sperm. These specialized fish rarely survive the journey to the surface. Before now, most deep-sea anglerfish studies use dead animals pulled up in nets and sometimes preserved in museums. In this case, the research team used a special submersible designed to capture images of creatures that live at these great depths. Like most other members of its order, this anglerfish is known for the bioluminescent, lure-like appendage that drifts in front of its mouth to attract prey. But this is the first time that what might be bioluminescence on the fish's filaments has been documented. The swaying swarm of thin projections around the angler may act like a 3D array of cat whiskers, sensing danger and prey in the environment. There is little to eat at this depth, and it is very cold, leaving anglerfish with few calories to spare. So it makes sense that, as this video shows, the anglerfish female seems to use very little energy, slowly drifting and rolling through the water. But we don't know much about their metabolism, the bacteria that supply their glow, or how the female's body doesn't reject the male's. The special ship that took this video has been in operation since 2013, and there aren't many like it in the world. So, chances are, many anglerfish mysteries will stay that way for some time to come.
Okay, very interesting. So this is part of that male anglerfish male parasitism. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the female. The female is something like, I don't know, 60 times larger than the male. Okay, the male's little. This one actually looks pretty big. Here, this is more accurate. So here's the big one, and here's the little male right here. So this one has more than one, right? So I've read several things about these strange creatures, and what I think I've come up with here is that the male, very small, his internal organs are underdeveloped. Therefore, his ability to digest food, he can't do it by himself. So he needs the female to help him digest food. Meanwhile, the female needs him for sperm, obviously for reproduction. So they've come up with this little interesting parasitism technique here. And what happens is that the male finds the female, he bites onto her, and then buries his head into her skin. It says that what happens is they start to dissolve the cellular tissue between the male and female. So really, his head goes into her body and it dissolves into it, and it's gone away. All right? So now he's just attached to her body. It's very creepy. And he patches into her digestive system and her circulatory system and is able to receive nutrients and to exchange gases using her digestive system and her circulatory system. That is crazy. And so he stays there forever, right? So he will only die once she dies. He doesn't ever come unattached because there's not really a fish left anymore. And more than one can join up. You can see on this one over here, we can see several of them are joining up here. And they are, it says parasitism. They're not killing the female. They're helping her, right? So it's just so strange how they actually become a part of each other. Okay, so they turn into one organism essentially. Here's a little cartoon. If I told you you had a beautiful body, would you let me permanently attach myself to it? So that's just showing this very bizarre relationship. Down on the sea floor, now think about this. If we're on the sea floor, that's the bottom. Okay, and at the bottom is going to be the most amount of pressure, right? It's going to be under high pressure. It's dark, it's cold, high pressure. But it does have a substrate. It has a place for creatures to be. So the creatures here are benthic. Remember, they walk on the bottom. So they're on the bottom. They must rely on sinking debris, including dead stuff that comes down from above. They patrol the bottom looking for tasty morsels. So they just crawl along the bottom looking for little things to eat. Bacteria living on the seafloor will break down leftovers and then make that available for the myofauna. Those are the ones in between the substrate, down in the mud, right? The little tiny things there. The infauna, the ones that are burying themselves, and the epifauna, the ones that are on the top, feed on suspended particles and deposits. They're kind of few and far between, however. So our food web goes like this. We have our predators. These are on the bottom now, the sea floor. We have crabs, sea stars, and some fishes that are predators to the deposit feeders, which are in fauna. Sea cucumbers, mollusks, things like that. Then the myofauna, then the bacteria, who are providing the nutrients for the myofauna. So this can go on your deep sea floor characteristics and the food web. So here's some of our creatures right there. So their body parts, look, they can get squished very easily. We see a little octopus there and a crab there, all crawling around, competing for food. All right, and our food web looks something like this. I think I had it on that previous slide better than this one right here. Now this is a mystery right here. We have discovered that there are some creatures living down there that every now and then we'll find a dead one that'll come to the surface. And they're massive. So we know about the giant squid, right? So there's the giant squid, that the only ones we've seen are dead ones. And then there's this one, the exotic oarfish. So look here, here's a 6 foot tall man, and that oarfish is massive, okay? Also known as a ribbon fish. We talked about that thin body shape. It's elongated, misshapen head. It says that it's a red body. I don't know. I think we have one on the next slide coming up. This may be the genesis of some of the sea serpent tails that have come up before. Also, the giant squid could be part of that. Let's see. I think I have. Yeah, here is a picture of a man holding a dead one. Okay, by the tail there. So you can see how large. This must be not quite, as large as the picture we saw in the last one. I don't think it's quite that big, but it is quite large. So that's one of those mysteries. We're not exactly sure what to say about those. Okay, so our lab that we would be doing right now is, I actually have ostracods for you. Ostracods are also known as sea fireflies. They're really a ton of fun to work with. That's why I didn't do them on a video for you. They look just like this. I have a vial with them in there, and then a slide and a glass rod to squish them. Right, so they look like that. You put them on the slide with a little drop of water, and then you start to crush them. And as you crush them, the bioluminescent chemicals are still in there. And as you crush them, they start to glow. So if I did this on a video, I could do it and squish them. My camera isn't really sensitive enough to pick up the very dim light that comes from them. But when we get back together, if you would see, you will be able to see it, and it's just so cool. I hate to do it without you. So let's just hope we're getting back together. We'll do this lab whenever, even if it's the last day of final exam or whatever. We'll do it then, because I really, really like this one. And that's it, y'all. We have a short lecture today because module 14 is pretty short. Next week it'll be even shorter, and you'll be watching a movie. Okay, so have a good week, and I'll be back with you. Be looking for your quiz to come up. Thanks, guys.